All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mind Over Motor podcast. Tonight, we're just going to get right into it. Let's talk about a rumor that's been going around that Lincoln might be making their own Bronco.
Oh yeah,
That's
from what we're hearing, it's quite a thing.
So, Al, you're the one that brought this to our attention, I believe.
It was either me or John.
Which one of you guys?
We're both Lincoln guys.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. We both like Lincolns. So, John, I think you were the one that brought this up, but I've been doing a little bit more research.
Take it away.
Sure. So we all know the Bronco has been, it's been having a moment, right, since it came out in, I believe, 2020. People are kind of shifting they're shifting away towards some of the more pedestrian kind of SUVs, and they're actually shifting more towards stuff like the G-Wagon, things that are very functional, things that kind of are boxier, things that are reminiscent of old school four-wheel drive vehicles, but with modern, conveniences. And people have been kind of calling on Lincoln to answer to this and to make a modern version using the Bronco chassis, but giving it the Lincoln treatment. So almost, you could say, a G-Wagon competitor, maybe a Range Rover competitor, but obviously probably at a much more accessible price point. So it's exciting for me. I haven't seen any kind of spy shots. Have you guys seen any? Is there any kind of official spy shot?
I haven't seen any. That's it. Kind of took me by surprise when you guys mentioned. I mean, I know people have talked about it, but I wasn't aware of anything like substantial, like, in terms of seeing actual testing. But I just think it's a cool idea. You know what I mean? I think, it's like, what are we looking for this car to be, right? And one of my thoughts is I really want the power running boards, but I want them to be like wood and metal trimmed, right? I want them to be like beautiful and just
that'd be cool.
And then you step on it and it's like wood with like a metal kick plate. That would be really, really nice. And I think they should pull out all the stops with the detail. Lots of wood grain, fine materials. Make it beautiful, right?
To hell with the wood grain.
What?
Don't give me wood grain. I want actual wood panels. I want them to do the Rolls-Royce Bentley treatment.
You're talking like Grand Wagoneer treatment?
Oh, no. You missed this one. What I'm talking about is, so full disclosure, I was at Carnegie Hall last week taking a tour with Katie, and I actually managed to blow away the curator of the Carnegie Hall tour and the museum they have by explaining to him what Steinway does in their partnership with Rolls and Bentley, which is that they sell their wood to Rolls and Bentley, and I think a couple of other manufacturers, and it's called piano black or piano wood. Lincoln, you need to steal that market away. Offer the piano wood, because I don't think Mercedes is doing it. I don't think any of the Germans are actually chasing after this for their own stuff. And bring back the open pore, the real wood, not this wood grain, not this veneer stuff.
You want real wood.
I want like a chunk of natural pore wood or piano black wood in my Bronco made luxury SUV.
See, what's hard about this is I know, like, the way a lot of current Lincolns are made, it's like they're calling black plastic piano black.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like,
except it's not actually supposed to
wood.
It's,
like the Rolls Royce way is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be real wood with a piano finish on it.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's actually, Nick, it actually is made. The reason it's called piano, it's made by Steinway.
No, I'm aware of that.
Literally,
I'm aware of that.
Product.
I'm talking about how cheaper companies are still calling black plastic that's shiny piano black, and Ford, I think, would be in danger of, unless they were really going to make this car really expensive. If they're going to try and make this car, 100 to 120 grand, they're probably risking, not going the extra mile with the piano wood.
Well, that's kind of where the Raptor is, right? So I'm curious, is this going to be adjacent to the Raptor? I'm assuming the suspension is going to be different. I don't think it would have that kind of crazy off-road suspension. It'd probably be something more like the Lexus GX that we drove, where you can kind of have maybe an off-road option or maybe a more street option.
I think that's great.
I think that would be.
You should have an option of the base engine should be the 3-liter EcoBoost from the Raptor. And then they should have the 3.5 with 500 horsepower. So 400 in the 3.0, 500 in the 3.5. And that's a realistic offering. Albert, you're shaking your head. I see what you're saying. It would be great to see a big V8 in this car.
7.3, baby.
Don't have a big V8 that would really suit this car right now. It would probably.
Well, I think the 5.0 could work.
The 5.0?
Yeah,
could.
That's too rowdy of an engine.
The truck engine.
Be a V8. I think it would need
use
to be
the. Actually, John made a great point right there. Use the 5.0 is available with a tune that's suitable for the F-150. The 7.3 shows up in the F2 and 350, and it is used as a gasser. Too heavy.
I think that's too heavy. Yeah.
Maybe.
I think
I don't know, man. Like
the truck 5.0.
They're trying to chase after the G-Wagon market too, though. So why not make some monstrous? Because I had this thought before I went to sleep last night, and I was thinking to myself, man, this is something I got to bring up to you guys. It's time. It's time, Lincoln. It's time to face your past. Remember the things that gave me joy as a 20-something when I had my Mark 7. The LSC, which stood for Lincoln Sports Coupe. It's time to bring us the LST, the Lincoln Sport Truck. Make a hypo version of this and just fill it with all of the greatest luxury touches you can get your hands on. The Navigator is already the Navigator when it got redesigned about 9 years ago, and I know there's a new one out, and I'm going to talk about that in a brief moment. Set the standard for American luxury SUVs at their peak. Loads of leather, beautiful polished metal trim, gorgeous wood, buttons up the wazoo. It made you feel proud to be an American buying a luxury SUV. You weren't going out and getting yourself a BMW and saying, well, I'll just have German luxury. You got a Navigator after Ford redid it and reset the product. I remember everybody was talking, everybody one-on-one. It was like they took the old Navigator and said, no, you're done. Get out of here. You're fired. This vehicle, if they're going to do an off-road version of of an SUV, if they're going to do this is going to be a G-Wagon fighter.
Yeah.
That's the plan. This will be a G-Wagon fighter at probably 70% of the price, which I think is a good plan.
I would hope for a little less than 70% of the price, to be honest. Fair. I think there's a much bigger market. Again, it shouldn't be cheap, obviously, but
no, I think the price should be at least 90 grand. Just my
opinion. I don't think there's any way it's gonna be less than 90 grand. I think
the Navigator starts at 92, man.
No, that's what I'm saying, dude. Is a Bronco and a Bronco Raptor is like, around 90 grand or so. So if this is gonna be kind of, above that in luxury and build and everything, you're talking 100 at least, I think, and up to like 130, 140 with options probably.
Yeah, there's only one question I have, and does it need there's a question that I think none of us have asked yet, and this is just me thinking from a practicality standpoint, so give me 1 second. So the Mercedes-Benz G-Class, the current model, the G-Wagon, does not have a third row seat, so thankfully I don't have to bring this up.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
Because I was going to say, okay, it's only a 5-passenger SUV, so this is definitely, this thing has to have the style, it has to have the curb appeal, and it has to have the capability of being able to go off-road. This could actually also be a Hummer fighter.
No, it shouldn't.
Except without the EV powertrain.
It shouldn't be that big. It would be a mistake. This car should be a little bit smaller in the same sort of market. This car should be a little smaller in stature than the Bronco Raptor. The Bronco Raptor is absolutely huge in terms of its width. It should not. That's not really a luxury experience, driving a monster truck around like that. Like this car needs to have a little bit less extreme stance, right? If you want that,
still be able to take a trail.
Yeah, it should be able to take a trail, but it also should be pretty easy to park, right? And pretty easy to live with and pretty easy to drive around. That's one thing Mercedes has done pretty well with the newer G-Wagons, is they're much more easy to live with than the earlier ones.
The Lexus LX series, same thing.
Yep, same thing. Those are great cars.
Very, very, very easy vehicle to live with.
I think they need to keep the removable top, though. I think the removable hardtop, I think they should keep that.
It's not a bad idea. I don't know how you're going to work it in, but then again, it is not a bad idea to have it. as a selling point over the Merc.
That's what I mean. Keep the off-road, open air appeal, man. Don't
Give it the
lose that
chops.
just because you made it fancy, right?
Yeah. That said, they should do. Ford has a pretty good engineering staff these days. They need to do everything, and I mean everything possible, to get the wind buffeting down with the roof open.
Yeah.
Because we all know that's a problem with these larger
I think
SUVs.
to a degree, like roof open, windows up. Yes.
That's what I mean.
Windows down, you get what you get.
Yeah.
You want the turbulence.
Do you think they'll do air suspension?
They have no choice not to.
Idea.
That would be good. Yeah.
It's needed.
I think that would kind of really differentiate the ride quality of this from the normal Bronco. Like the average person would really just get in this and be like, "Oh yeah, that's why I spend the extra for that different ride
should
quality."
Have a comfort mode that rides like right?
Yeah. I think that'd be a good move if I were in charge of this. I think that'd be something I definitely want to add.
Yeah, and I would love to see like a twin turbo V8 and stuff, but they don't have one right now. And so I think the most likely is the EcoBoost 6 cylinders.
That's
3.5.
Yeah, they're probably just going to stick with what they have in there already, which is the 2.7 and the 3.0. I don't think you'll be able to get the
engines.
4-cylinder manual. I don't think that's going to be an option.
I think the 3.5 should fit in there. Hopefully,
they just don't do it now. I feel like
they don't do it yet. They throw it in the
the
Navigator. That's the only engine available in the Navigator.
What, the 3.5?
The high output, or the higher output 3.5.
Well, that was the case for the previous gen too. They only offered one engine.
Yeah, they just offer that.
They haven't offered more than two engines in years.
Doesn't the 3.0
make
more
than one
power,
engine since
the 3.0 makes 400 horsepower. The 3.5 I think makes like 440, 450 in the
okay.
They're like not that far. That's why I was saying I think the 3.5 needs to be brought up to 500 horsepower to make it really because I think the Raptor engine's a good base engine, but like then you should have like the better one. But we need to see a 5, man. This is a luxury car. You know what I mean? Let's get out of the 4s.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to rival a G-Wagon and a G63 in power, but it should.
Well, you want to scare yourself. The current Navigator's engine is 432 horsepower. Yeah. It's putting out 510 foot-pounds of torque, which is honestly pretty great. It's a beast.
It's a great package for that. And that's why I mean, like, I think the EcoBoost V6s, again, when they're not screaming, like, they're pretty good in the context of a Lincoln, right? They do what Lincoln should do. They're smooth power.
They do.
Substantial power, not it's the right type of power.
Now, here's a question for the floor. Do you guys think that Cadillac would ever chase after this segment? My answer is a flat out no.
I don't think GM even has anything like this. They haven't.
Not right now. It would take
they'd have to bring back the Blazer in a real way.
They did bring back the Blazer. My neighbor has one. It's this piece of shit CUV that.
They shouldn't have done
nothing like a Blazer.
Your neighbor is an embarrassment.
They try to make it like an SUV looking that looks like a Camaro.
They should not have done that. Yeah,
it's absolutely awful. So they missed their opportunity there. They need to kill it and rebirth it as a proper Blazer. But they don't have anything like that right now, and nothing on the horizon either. So. All right, gents. I think we've about covered it, but I mean, I think that would be pretty cool if they did that. I think the market segment is wide open, and I think all these bougie girls, especially, really want to drive around in some fancy boxy SUVs. I know my wife does. So I think there's definitely a market for it, especially if they undercut the G-Wagon, if they price it closer to the Defenders. I think there's definitely a market for this. So with that, let's move on.
Yes, sir.
All right. First off, I'm going to pour a little bit of this for the next topics.
What you got there, sir?
I got a little of this Penelope Havana, which is like rum. It's it's bourbon with finished in rum barrels. It's good shit.
So, speaking of bourbon, I had a call with my brother Seth today.
Yeah.
So, one of Seth's old friends, he's a friend of mine as well, Ray Hendrickson, is getting married, I think, a little bit later this year. I don't know when exactly, but I think like August, maybe September. And the bachelor party is going to be in Kentucky.
Oh, have fun with that.
He is. He told me he is stoked. He saved up a bit. He said they're going to be going to I think he said it was he's going. The Buffalo Trace is going to be the last stop. They're saving that one for last. I think the first one they're hitting is Woodford Reserve. They're doing 3. The one in the middle, I think, is the same place where they make Blade and Bow.
Oh, okay.
I just don't know. I don't remember the exact. I got a text.
Castle and Key. I don't remember.
That's it. It's called Castle and Key. Because I know the whole key. The key is the collectible with the Bowman bourbons.
Right.
So they're going to those 3.
Weller Distillery, where the original Pappy Van Winkle.
Right.
His
and they're also going to do they're going to tailgate for some horse racing.
That's a good idea. That sounds like a really fun.
Yeah.
And
my brother Seth betting the ponies, which is here's the thing. Out of the 3 of us, Seth is probably the least disposed to gambling. Like he doesn't. I don't really see him. When we were in Vegas many years ago, he gambled, but not as much as I gamble. Matthew really didn't gamble, but Seth really isn't a big gambler. So I'm genuinely curious to see how he's going to approach.
Well, you get a couple of glasses of bourbon and he'll start gambling because, it makes a lot more sense. Betting on horses when you're already a little bit 3 sheets
when you're no longer sober.
I'll be honest.
And as is tradition.
I've never bet on horses until the last, year. And we went to this horse racing event for my wife's work. And I had a couple of McAllens that night. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So I lost 20 bucks.
Were you at an OTB or were you at a track?
My horse was ahead of the whole pack coming around the final bend, and then 2 got by him by the finish line. I was so pissed.
What track were you? Were you at a Racino in PA or were you in Monmouth Park?
No, by the Meadowlands.
Oh,
it was fun.
I have been in at that track one time, and how do I put this lightly?
Oh, sorry, Albert. We were in the box. So I don't know what experience you had, bro.
Did you have to go through the metal detector?
We were up in the box, bro.
Did you have to go through the metal detector?
I don't remember. Probably.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of metal detectors.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine I did.
The standard. Probably. Well, here's the thing, dude. The standard clientele at that track is definitely of a lower tier than when you get at Monmouth Park. Because I've been at Monmouth Park.
I mean, we were there for like a
much
special event.
Safer.
So
That's fair.
We were in the skybox with like not riffraff.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the only horse tracks in the country that I know of that actively does chariot racing.
Yeah, that was what we were there for. We were there for the chariot. Yeah,
that's sick.
Yeah, I know.
I just don't like that. I just don't like that place.
It's crazy.
Also, the sports book is creepy there.
Yeah. All right, people, be careful drinking whiskey and betting on horses because you will lose money most likely.
Be even more careful drinking whiskey and betting on this team.
There you go. All right. Now with that little detour,
I need more.
Now we're finished that little detour. The next topic piggybacks off of our time with the Maserati Grecale Trofeo.
Yes.
We experienced some interesting things. John, you tell them what your friends said, what our friends, I mean, we both know him. Tell them what your friends said when you sent them a picture of the Maserati.
Yeah, so I sent a picture to it, after it had showed up at my house. I was excited about this car. Obviously, it's a exclusive brand with an engine from their top level supercar packaged into something that you could live with on a daily basis. And I was super excited to test it out. I took a picture of it and I sent it over to a friend of mine. I said, this is what I'm driving for the next few days. And he just responded one word, lame. And it's really because it's got, I don't know, he's in his head where he's thinking SUVs or CUVs and performance don't go together. And I've been thinking about that a lot. And I think that's sort of a thinking of the past, right? I think, and I told him this is kind of a dig. I said, if this car came out 20 years ago when you were in high school, you would have liked it. So I was just trying to tell him, you got to open your mind a little bit. It's kind of weird. It's quirky. The idea of having this crazy engine in this car that you could take to the grocery store is cool. I mean, we all like fast station wagons. I think, in the future, there is a potential segment where these cars can be enthusiast cars. But I wanted to kind of open up to the floor here and see what do you guys think? Do you think that the CUV segment is just destined to be a mom-mobile, or are they going to have real collector or enthusiast prowess in the future?
I face this dichotomy myself. And, like when you told me what he said, I was like, come on, man. Like, and I've had the pleasure of driving a few of these at this point, the fast, fun SUV, CUV cars. And I will say every time I'm in them, I enjoy them. They drive, kind of like big rally cars, especially the mid-size ones like the Grecale or the Macan or the X3M or something like that. Those cars drive like big rally cars. Like if you know what a WRX kind of experience is, it's sort of like that, but like bigger and more comfortable. But the same kind of performance, all-wheel drive, and like, the same type of way you drive the car. So like as a WRX guy, from way back, an STI guy, like, I appreciate that type of performance and that type of experience and what it does with a practical package. But at the same time, we had a great time. But every time I think about like, oh, would I pick up a Grecale Trofeo used, or maybe like a Stelvio Quadrifoglio or something with the same engine? Every time I think about that, is like, would I replace that my Charger is, like my fun practical car? Objectively, there's no reason not to. But then I think about the Giulia Quadrifoglio, and it's like, well, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's rear-wheel drive. It's still not manual in this country. They got manual out over in Europe. But, I think, and I'm like, I don't know. I if it was just my car, I'd probably have to go with the Alpha, because lighter, lower, rear-wheel drive, probably a bit more fun. But that doesn't mean that the CUVs aren't fun. They're just a different kind of fun. And honestly, like my big thing was, especially like driving around with Gab and stuff, is the Grecale Trofeo. If we were in a situation where me and Gab were going to both be driving a car, that's where these make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You have to split a car with someone else who isn't necessarily into cars, but they will just drive it around like a normal SUV in comfort mode, and then you'll get it and put it in sport or Corsa mode, and you each do your thing with it. This car could do that, and a Giulia Quadrifoglio can't do that. My Charger really can't do that. She's driven my Charger once, and she's it's a lot of power to the rear wheels, and it's intimidating. This, on the other hand, comfort mode, it's just a SUV. The Grecale is just an SUV. So I mean, there's a usability there, but I understand kind of where the haters are coming from. But every time I drive one of these, I'm like, objectively, there's nothing to hate on here. These are great.
So this guy's probably about our age. So I can kind of understand where someone like him is coming from, because when I first heard that Maserati was making a small SUV, I had a similar reaction. I was like, really? Why?
I had that reaction when I started making the Levante. I was like, look at this.
Exactly. We all did, because we all grew up in an era where most sport utility vehicles, not all, but most, especially ones that were, car-based ones, were looked at as hopelessly uncool. Were looked at as family haulers. The kind of thing where, when you hit high school, if you're driving one, you're probably a loser, because it's the car that nobody really wants to drive. Just like, this thing's uncool.
I think it's worse than a loser. You're like an NPC, right? You're somebody that has no personality.
No. It's a loser mobile. NPC would be, to me, would be better, because then you're just,
no, man.
You can kind of fade away a bit.
At least today, dude, CUVs are literally the NPC car, and I think that's what's tough.
Oh, I'm going back farther than.
You're talking about you're talking about further. I'm talking about
I'm talking about like 2007, 2008. So like when the Nissan Rogue comes out, around that
like
era,
the beginning of it.
Yeah. I'm talking about
back when crossovers were still sort of new. And they were like, we're making a crossover too.
Exactly. It's like,
before they got
I'm going to make one. I'm going to make one. It's you get a crossover, and you get a crossover, and you get it's the Oprah Winfrey thing. It's just, for people like us, we look and we're like, okay, great. And we're just, in the background, you're kind of throwing up in your mouth a little bit. But here's the thing. that segment, just like and if we want to go back to the 90s, we had something similar going on with station wagons, SUVs, and with pickup trucks, where some of us probably laughed at the high performance versions of pickup trucks coming out in late 1990s. The SVT Lightning, we were like, well, what's the point of this? The SVT10, maybe at first, when they first launched, there were probably at least a couple of naysayers who said, why? But those of us in the know knew that the engineers who made them were saying, why not? The Grecale Trofeo is a why not. It is a situation where the engineers said, we got this little compact truck. We're a company that built its name on winning races all over Europe. Why not? Why not make a fun version? And they weren't. And here's the thing: it's not like the Grecale Trofeo is the first one of these.
No, not by a long shot.
BMW had the X3M Comp.
So it really started
Alpha
with
beat them
Macan,
to market with
the
Macan
back,
and the Cayenne too. I mean, when the
well,
Cayenne,
the Cayenne,
bigger, but
yes, size up, yeah, for sure.
But when the
Just
Cayenne
size
first
level
came
up.
out, people thought that was like, oh, this is the end of Porsche. You
Yeah.
know, they were like
Yeah, and
really
then
upset by that. But
people were furious. People
They
were
were
like, it was just
wrong.
lighting torches. And then they lit torches again when the Panamera came up. We're not talking about sedans here today.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you say, well, I think it was GM coming out with the Trailblazer SS back in 03, or whatever it was, like maybe 05, 06. They were like, well, what's this? But those of us in the know realized that there was something to it.
You know how I found out about the Trailblazer SS?
Oh,
Quick.
I remember this story.
I was in my
Story.
Subaru STI.
Kept up with you, right?
And yeah, and like I just got on it. I was just trying to go fast wherever I was going. I wasn't like racing or anything. I was just like, whatever. I'm just getting through traffic, and all of a sudden I go around this Trailblazer, and he like gets on, and I hear the V8 and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, look at this guy. But like, so I start, going, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's like keeping up, kind of like he wasn't gaining, but I'm like, he's not flying back, and I'm like, what is that? So he kind of like traffic bunches up, and I get a better look at it, and it says SS on the side. I was like, whoa, that's interesting.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's funny.
And
I mean, here's the crazy part about they are very cool.
Think about the Typhoon too.
Yeah, I was about to say
that
the
was
Typhoon.
way ahead of its time.
That was 20 years before prime time. And I think, believe it or not, I think this is a potential podcast topic that we're going to talk about later on down the road, which is celebrity car collections, I believe. And we can correct this in post. Michael Strahan has one.
I think he does. Yeah.
Well, where is it? There it is.
That was one of his
this
first
team's fame.
I
believe it was one of his
first
first cars that he bought after he joined Big Blue. So yeah, I mean, those cars today are looked back at really, really fondly. The Grecale Trofeo is going to end up hitting that echelon, along with a lot of its brothers and sisters from other brands. Here's the thing. The ho-hum stuff is the ho-hum stuff. That stuff's never going away. It's there for a reason.
Well, why
and it's not going to go away?
Why are people antagonistic towards this? Because I do have one idea with this, and it goes with your least favorite car, Al. And actually,
which least favorite car is that again?
You used to own, and your least favorite car, our least favorite car, actually. You owned a Fiesta ST.
Hey, I like that car.
Oh no, amazing car, awesome car. That was a genuine hot hatch, super fun. What did that get replaced by?
Oh God,
the EcoSport.
Oh God.
Now,
the travesty.
The EcoSport itself is not a great car, but it's probably not as bad as people give it. People seem to make it, or we certainly us. But I think one of the reasons why we hate that car so much is because it took the Fiesta from us. And I have an anger. What?
No, that's not why I didn't like it.
Why?
I think we need to make something.
Don't go personal.
I won't. I promise I won't. I've driven one. I intensely dislike the way it drove. Here's the thing. Yes, they took the Fiesta from us to give us the EcoBoost. Yes, that was an absolutely dismal decision.
Yeah.
Now, I agree that it was a
I really don't care
bad
how
move.
it drives because I'm never going to drive one.
Here's the thing, though. I drove one on the way home from something where I was going, and I was thoroughly unhappy. I did not understand how you could make a subcompact or compact SUV with that lack of leg room in the front, which was truly awful.
Yeah, it's
Here's the
bad.
thing. It's hard to like a car where the driving position is fit for somebody who's been amputated.
And you're pretty short, and you're saying that. I can't even imagine
Yes.
sitting in one.
Yes. The
Yeah.
pedal box, it's like they took the pedal box of a Lotus and then threw it in something that has the driving dynamics of, well, a barrel of cement that's been chucked down a hill filled with rocks.
But here's the thing, dude. Even if
It's
it drove pretty
horrible,
good,
man.
even if it drove pretty good, I think a lot of us enthusiasts would still have hatred for these things because
And it's a
it helped
blob.
kill the Fiesta and the Focus. That's why I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't really care how it drives because it's not my type of thing I'd ever pursue, right? It took away cars that I actually am interested in favor of some bullshit that I'm not interested in and never will be. And
My
I think
issue is that
across the whole industry is what we're seeing.
You're not wrong about
where a lot of
that.
this malice comes from.
You're not wrong about that. That's a good point. And I actually don't aim the blame, the blaming stick. If I have something I can use here, I don't want to use that. I'm going to use that. I'm not going to aim the blaming stick at the manufacturers for that. I actually aim the blaming stick at the EPA. Because the EPA, thanks to the corporate average fuel economy standards that kept getting more and more difficult to achieve, how do I put this correctly? Made it financially untenable to continue building passenger cars that got even halfway decent fuel mileage, but light trucks were held to a much more reasonable standard, which is what gave us the abominations of, well, the Chevy Trax, the Ford Eco, the Ford Eco not so sporty. See what I did there? The Jeep Renegade, which is about as much of a renegade as a newt.
My wife used to own two of those.
I'm well aware. That's why I brought it up. I'm sure Gab's gonna love me for saying that.
Here's my take on the Renegade. I drove one for a lot of miles. It's a great little package. The car itself is cool. I think it looks funky. It's interesting. It's practical. It works, right? It's easy to park and stuff. But the drivetrain and the engine are dog shit. And I mean absolute dog shit. So like if it had a better engine in it and a better transmission and stuff, it could have been a decent little car for sure. But man, especially with that Tiger Shark 2.4, that thing was genuinely dangerous.
Rotten onion.
I lost a race to a Prius C in one, and that was one of the worst moments of my life.
It could have been worse. You could have lost the race to my cousin's Prius V with both of her children in it.
Yeah, because then the kids would have been laughing at me as she pulled away. But if they, if they had made a Jeep Renegade SRT with like a little 2-liter turbo in it and proper hand, actually it did handle pretty well. It steered pretty well. It was all right.
My God, what if they threw the Abarth powertrain in that?
Well, they did.
With the
they did throw that in there, just not like fun wise.
No, was it a lower
state? They threw the Abarth engine in it as like the I won't even say a base motor, but it had that, but it without the.
But it was detuned, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just whatever in it. You know what I mean? But no, they never had fun. They never really had fun with that car, and I think that's some of these cars when they're too pedestrian. There is no. That's why we say NPCs, right? It's literally the most bland type of car you could buy, and then Maserati comes out with the Grecale Trofeo and.
It's almost as if
with the Macan turbos and stuff like that.
It's almost as if the compact crossover market for so many years has committed one of the 7 deadly sins, which I think this one would have to be sloth. Because the problem is all of these compact crossovers, and there's exceptions, we brought them up already. A lot of them, and this is what poisoned our minds as enthusiasts, were so mind-numbing for so many years that whenever we see, it's a compact crossover, there's Facebook groups that have probably been around for at least 2 presidential administrations ripping on this kind of thing. that they're driven by, NPCs. And a lot of them exude, well, ultimate energy. Particularly, I think RCR put it best, which is problems created by them and for the people around them. Just, it's tragic because the thing is, my sister-in-law Rachel had Mazda CX-5s for a while until she had the second child and she got a CX-90. They're not bad in terms of practicality. They do they're there to do a job, to do it well.
And
Are they
ergonomics.
interesting?
They're easy. They're easy to get in and out of. Yeah.
Yes, they are. They're
They're
very easy to get into and out of,
Yeah.
But are any of them interesting? For many years, the answer was flatly no. There's interesting ones out there now. What I want to see, what I really want to see happen, and thankfully Hyundai sort of lit the match on this, and I'm glad they did, with the Kona N. More of that. I want to see more hopped up, hot rodded, cool and fast and fun to drive compact crossovers that don't break the bank. Because the Grecale Trofeo is a wonderful machine, but it is also not cheap to buy new, and the resale value is iffy. Ergo, it's not a smart financial buy for most people who make less than $100,000 a year. We need to see vehicles. I'm just throwing that number out there as an example.
$100,000 a year these days to afford that, I think, dude.
But here's my point. For people who make regular people money, and there's many people out there like that, we all know who they are.
Yeah,
hell, I'm probably one of them. We need, let's say, come on, Toyota. Give me a Gazoo Racing RAV4.
Yeah, that's rumored, actually.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Supposedly that might happen.
I mean, Dodge stopped building the Hornet, but if Dodge were ever to make a Hornet SRT and just go nuts, make it the Hornet GLH, for God's sake.
Well, the problem is nobody bought the Hornet to begin with.
Well, because they marketed it like they said to themselves, "Well, we'll just sell this," and it was marketed. You know what? I think I finally hit the nail on the head with the Hornet. And Nick, it's okay if you don't get this reference, although, you being in marketing, I think you will. John, I know you will. Would you say the Hornet was Dodge's new Coke moment?
Come on, Nick. You know the new Coke.
That could be fair.
A product launched so botched, so hated, so reviled by the general public that the company did an about-face.
I'm going to tell you right now, they just didn't understand their customer, because I drive a SRT Charger, and they sent me a pamphlet. I can't find it. I need to find it. But they sent me a pamphlet that had a Hellcat, Charger, and Challenger with a Hornet coming up between them, and it said, "Keep the ride going." Like they're the same fucking thing. And I was like, you guys really don't know your customer at all, do you? Like, what the hell are you doing?
Oh, yeah,
it was awful. No, their marketing on it was terrible. It was like, guys, like they just had no idea what the hell they were even trying to do.
Let alone, really sad,
they also made the Charger electric, which was really a bad idea, as it turns out.
The problem is you can't clip me taking my glasses off and doing this, but no, you can, because oh my God.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
No, I know. I think
some of this stuff is these people don't know how to market these CVs. Because here's the thing, actually, by all accounts that I've heard, the Hornet itself actually wasn't like that bad of a car at all. No, like I heard they were actually decently fun, decently quick. Like they're all the things that we're saying are pretty fun.
So
it's based on an Alfa Romeo. Like it's not a bad car. It just was priced too high and not marketed well at all for what it was. All right, so kind of summing this up, I view these fast CUVs and SUVs as like hot hatches. If you like a Volkswagen GTI, you probably should be open to liking a fast SUV like a X3M or a Grecale Trofeo. They're way more expensive, obviously. And Albert, you were right about the the Kona N. It would be nice to see more, $30,000 to $40,000.
I mean, come on. If
SUV.
Chevrolet is going to continue to ruin names like the Blazer and Trailblazer with these crossovers, which look at Ford. Ford did an Edge. They did an Explorer ST, which I think was a success. And I think wasn't there also a sportier version of the Edge that came out for a couple of years?
There was the Edge ST. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they did it. Was there? I think it was more of a trim package than a performance package.
No, it had like a more powerful engine in it.
Okay.
I forget how much power, but it was.
I remember. You know, it's funny.
And it handled really well too.
I remember kind of poking fun at that 5-6 years ago when it came out. I was like, "This is stupid."
Well, it still looked like an Edge. You know, it wasn't a good.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly
car,
cool.
I remember hearing people say they handled pretty well. Like,
yeah,
not bad.
Because the thing is, the Edge is another. Actually, the Edge is my second least favorite SUV of all time.
Oh, Ford's not doing too great with you.
Yeah, no, they make a lot of good products, but the Edge for me, the engine was not a problem, the handling wasn't a problem. It was the seats. Just
we had one of the earlier ones as a rental car, and I just remember like just the ergonomics weren't there, and every time he got out of it, and it was just this big balloon of a thing. It was just like,
well, my problem was I had a 2020 model that I was driving while my work truck radiator was being replaced. Because I had the Edge, then I had a Tahoe right after that. The Tahoe I loved. Tahoe was great. Then again, it's kind of hard to hate the Tahoe, in my opinion. Tahoe's a pretty good truck.
We're off topic. We're way off topic.
So my point is just
we're not even talking about fun SUVs. We're talking about shit SUVs. So.
Well, I guess that's where I kind of want to bring it, because I think it's easy for these to get like into the mix of like, you know, the sheer amount of CUVs that are out there, but I think the cream rises to the top, right? I think at the end of the day, the really special ones are going to continue to be special, you know, especially when they put a crazy engine like they do in this one. We can look historically at like the Typhoon or the Mitsubishi. What's the name of that? The Pajero?
The Pajero with the
like Evo, that's crazy.
Pajero,
you know, and that's a real collector car.
Cool.
Yeah,
and there's
that's true. We're starting to see it.
So I think if you could look at if you can look at like a fast station wagon, or like Nick, what you were saying, like a fast hatchback, I think you should really consider these as potential enthusiast cars and current enthusiast cars and potential collector cars maybe in the future.
And they're actually some of the best bargains on the market because a lot of people don't really consider them. Like you can get like a Stelvio Quadrifoglio with the 20K range right now. And I mean, you're going to have a little bit of maintenance to do there, and
worth it.
Some of it maybe, don't stretch your budget to get to one, but if you're looking for something that's fun and has like a rally car type of experience, but that's practical and everything, like that's a hell of a car. If you can afford like a $40,000 car, buy one of those for 25 and just put a little work into it. And you got a 500 horsepower, really, really fun to drive SUV that is an alpha, and it's pretty awesome. Not going to lie. So I think I'm definitely coming around. Every time I drive one of these things, I'm like, yeah, these are cool. I'm officially saying it. Fun SUVs are just as fun as pretty much any other fun practical car. I'm just gonna say
as fun as fun. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy the darn ride, man.
You don't have to go nuts. You don't have to go, be contrarian about it. Some people hate things just to hate things or whatever, but it's like
that's right.
Now these things deserve
Redditors
some respect, and they deserve to be seen as legitimately fun, because they are.
Yeah, they've earned it. I think that a lot of people love to be contrarian for contrarian's sake. I knew a lot of those people growing up, and here's my message to any of you who are listening who remember those types. You people need to touch grass. Find a new hobby. Let people enjoy things. And with that, I think we can move on to our next topic. And as a transition, look what I just found. And I can send this to you or not send this to you. If you guys go on Johnny Lieberman's Instagram page, shout out to Johnny. Your page is freaking great. He just found a Mars. I think this is down in Miami right now. I guess Moto Miami's going on right now. A Mars Red Sterling Moss SLR 722.
Ooh, that's pretty great.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we got to go to Moto maybe next year.
Listen, my grandma lives down there.
Yeah,
being easy. It's just all I got to do is payment is just take her out to lunch.
All right, so getting into that, Lieberman posted something yesterday that brought about this next topic. The next topic here is the thoughts on the proliferation of modern Restomods. All right, Al, take it away. What spurred this conversation?
So what spurred this conversation is that over the course of the last 12 months, we have been seeing an explosion of vehicles from the 1980s, 90s, and now even the 2000s getting updates, modern updates, being brought into the 2020s era and being made relevant, more reliable, more fun, more entertaining, but keeping the ethos of what made those cars so unique and cool when they were new.
And most importantly, keeping the VIN. So you don't have to worry about modern emissions and safety and shit.
And modern taxes and all that.
Yeah.
Not so fun stuff. I mean, hey, April 15th is coming.
Yeah, these are all technically used cars, but I mean, it goes back to, it really kind of goes back to Singer. 911s being reimagined by Singer.
Singer's one of them. There's a few others. We've also got
in the modern
Icon.
In the modern era with the popularization of this trend, it goes back to Singer. They're the ones that first took 964s, stripped them all the way down to the bare metal, and then
sent the values of the ones that weren't upgraded into the friggin' stratosphere.
Yeah, and then they rebuild them into a brand new 964 inspired car with all the modern details, all the modern technology. Nowadays, they even have their own, I believe, engines built by Cosworth, their own air-cooled flat sixes built by Cosworth.
Right.
It's a spectacular machine. And yes, they're like millions of dollars. So it's not something accessible. But calling it a Restomod in the same way that like some guy's old Camaro in the 90s, was, it's not even the same league. These cars have more in common with like modern hypercars and their detail work and their craftsmanship than they do with, the traditional sense of like a Restomod. So that term, I think it's thrown around because it does fit, but it's like reimagined, I guess, is really the, what people are using the term wise. And it goes from everything from 911s reimagined by Singer to the Accentria V12, which is a Diablo that's been reimagined, to, the touring Superleggera V12. I forget the exact name right now, but
based on the 550.
550, yeah. I mean, we saw all those at Dream Ride, and we'll put some pictures up of those.
Yeah. It piqued my interest because I did that whole video on the touring product back in August, when I was there at Dream Ride with you. But then the story goes back even further for me than Singer, because Singer's been around for a little over 10 to 12 years, I think.
Yeah,
maybe longer.
Yeah.
There's another brand that was also doing this with other cars, particularly you guys know them as Icon.
That's right.
The Ford Bronco. They were doing this with FJ40 Land Cruisers, I believe, as well. There's been this push to modernize classics and antiques.
Yeah.
For many, many, many years. And now, and I saw this and it brought me back to, and I'd seen Haggerty had put up this video earlier this week, a clip from the James Bond movie GoldenEye, where Pierce Brosnan is driving the DB5 chasing Xenia Onatopp in a 355 GTS. And here we have a Restomod 355, the 355 by Evoluto, which is developed by DRVN Advanced Engineering. They revised 200 different powertrain components. It gives it an extra 40 brake horsepower. You get CNC ported cylinder heads, bigger valves, exclusive type of inlet cam, solid lifters, and coil and plug ignition.
What was the horsepower?
420.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, so and a car that doesn't really weigh a
horsepower over the stock car.
It's another 40, according to what I got here. They upgrade the brakes. You can actually order this with carbon ceramic rotors. The styling is absolutely brilliant. And what got my attention immediately, and I mean immediately, it took me like 3 seconds to see it. 2 simple words that bring joy to, well, everybody. Gated manual.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
it is still 355. It's just totally redone.
It's
So
a
it has all that
355
magic.
with, and my God, have you guys seen the way the interior of this thing looks? Oh, all that Alcantara. I was getting weak in the knees, man.
Yeah.
It just looks so cool. I'm a sucker for Alcantara. I think it's one of the greatest materials I've ever seen. It's got this class to it. And the thing is with 355s is it was the first of its type in the 90s of Ferrari's mid-engine V8 product line to begin getting some modern electronics. Didn't get many. It didn't get, the Manatino switch or anything like that, but it was the first one that didn't have manual steering anymore. It got power steering. I think the 348 was manual steering.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It finally got, I think they have ABS. I don't know if 348s have it. They might, I'm not sure. It was still late 80s. That was
It would be
still
the
very,
way.
very exotic. It's still a very exclusive option. I don't even think Ferrari was doing it on most of their cars anyway. And I could be wrong, and I hope I am, for God's sakes. But it was also the first Ferrari to come with paddle shifters. So it's in a weird
The
spot.
first production Ferrari to come with paddle shifters.
Production, yes.
Some of the
you.
Brunei specials had them because those people
I don't want to talk about
are
him.
lame and don't drive a stick.
I don't want to talk about him. He's to quote the patron saint of New Jersey, Saint Anthony Soprano. She's dead to me.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, these cars. I think so. There's sort of a dichotomy here, and it's sort of the same type of thing we were talking about with the CUVs. It's like the direction that the industry is going is somewhat seen as very uninteresting to a lot of car enthusiasts, and so instead of paying for the amount of money that some of these cars cost, we're taking that money and we're saying, okay, well, instead of buying a brand new Ferrari, I'm going to buy a 30-year-old Ferrari and have it completely redone and have the experience that was famous for, but with the modern technology and handling and tires and wheels and some of the stuff like has like modern traction control and stuff like that, and a modern engine in some cases. I mean, you really can get a dialed in modern package in these cars, and it's pretty crazy. So
really nuts.
Drawbacks, really other, at all compared to, I mean, if you're spending that kind of money, it's like you can really redo a lot of things for $1 million in an old car. You know what I mean?
So it's funny. I'm actually looking at because Haggerty ran a story on it, and I'm reading through it now, and apparently the restoration started at about $900,000 at the time of publishing, which was a little over a year and change ago. 55 of them were being made, and the one that Johnny was showing off on his page was red. So it was definitely a customer vehicle for sure.
Yeah, I think that was the first customer car.
Yeah, that was the first
other one
customer
last
vehicle.
year, I think, was blue.
Yeah, the one that you're talking about, one I'm looking up here,
was that
was
like
blue.
I think it was at the Quail and stuff.
It was brought to the Quail in 2024. It was debuted at Goodwood that year.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it debuted, and
even
that's a show, by the way. Oh my God, I gotta get there.
Yeah, Goodwood's
Goodwood. I mean, here's the thing. There's something crazy about it's something truly cool about a 426 Hemi driving up that course, because I've seen video, and I think it's one of Richard Petty's cars, which for a Mopar guy is just
John, so what's your take on this, John?
So I've been a little quiet on this one, and that's because I'm not going to say I'm a total hater, but this isn't for me.
Boo hiss.
When I don't know, I've seen some of these companies where they're pulling good engines out of cars, swapping in electric motors, I don't know.
That no.
To me, that's a definite no. And even some of the modern stuff, I think to myself, I don't know. I like these cars because they are period correct, because they're from a different era, because they are vintage, because they're not the same as what we're getting today. And I think especially for the money that they're charging for these cars, it's just not really worth it for me. Like $1 million for a 355, you can buy more than one of them, at an original price, for the original car. So I don't know. I get it if you really want something if you're some kind of celebrity and you want something super unique, or you're really just looking for something to money's burning a hole in your pocket. But I don't know. I'd rather have 10 original cars from the period for 100,000 than $100,000 Singer. To be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like what I like about cars is that they are from the period, right? It's. I think that's kind of like part of it for me. And I wouldn't say I'm anti-modification in general, but that's where it's kind of like a line where you change the car from what it was completely. It might not be exactly for me.
I will say that that's the dichotomy, right? Is for every Singer you gain, you lose a 964.
Yeah.
Now,
and that's a shame.
There is some truth to the idea that people are buying rough donor cars and sending them to Singer. They're,
that's good.
Tired ones. I'm okay with that all day long. But I really hope, and again, with the amount of money being spent, the amount of money there's worth, it's jacked the prices of 964s up because people want donor cars. And, at this point with the volume they're doing, they aren't all old, tired ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think I do have a little bit of a problem with that.
Yeah. This is kind of why I'm much more into like the modern component cars, what we used to call, kit cars that were maybe not as cool back in the day. The new ones that they have are incredible, right?
Yeah.
Like the one I was talking about, the Ford GT-R. It's sort of their new version of the early 2000s Ford GT. Like, to me, that's like a great example of something kind of similar to this, where you're not taking a donor car, you're making something completely new off of the exact, spec requirements from the factory of the original car, and then making it better. So like I get where that's going with that, but when you take like a good example and you chop it up and do something else with it, I don't know. For me, it's just not for me.
I can understand that, but I can also understand wanting to make something unique for yourself. It's your car, it's titled to you. Here's the thing, at that point, it's the owner's choice, as far as I'm concerned. Who am I to judge what you want to do with it? And I have exceptions to that rule, by the way. One of which is we all know, I think you guys know where I'm going with this, which is the body swap crap that we saw in the 90s with the MN12s. I think, John, you know what I'm getting at. There's actually one for sale on Facebook Marketplace right now, and I swear to God, I almost puked when I saw it because it was so badly done. Then again, they're all badly done. I see these as a way to move the hobby forward a little bit and to get people. It adds uniqueness, it adds a different flavor. And if it helps to get people's kids involved, it helps to get Gen Z involved more than what they already are, which, there's been a bit of a turn of fortune in that. I think the market's starting to move, especially as Gen Z starts hitting their college years, and they got us to teach them, and we can always teach them. I'm happy to teach them because they need some teaching. This could be a good thing.
It's Gen Alpha now, Al. Gen Z is mostly grown at this point.
Yeah, but Gen Z is still young. That's the thing. Nick, we're 30. I'm 36, man. Gen Z to me is that's the 20s.
Yeah.
They're still impressionable
they're grown,
at that age.
They're grown. I mean, the youngest Gen Zs now, I think, are midway through high school or something. I'd have to look, but
it's still at an age where you can
careful throwing away. You like sound like one of those old guys saying, "Oh, you millennials." It's like, dude, that was like 20 years ago that we were like.
Well, on the inside, I mean, considering my automotive history, I mean, I plead the fifth.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about value here. So, like a Singer, I think will hold its value or appreciate.
Yeah,
probably. But like if you paid 150, 200,000 for these hopped up 1960s Broncos, I think if you just spent 200,000 and bought, multiple original 60s Broncos, you would see those increase in value. And I think that singular
they already have.
I think that singular Restomod would actually lose a considerable amount of money.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between what I brought up at the beginning was like, what we would think of with the term Restomod and the more traditional sense versus what these reimagined cars are. I think that speaks to the level of quality and attention to detail. When you have these full overhauls, not just updates, but like, literally like Pagani level like details and stuff.
Yeah.
It becomes its own thing.
It's
right?
a whole different bag of bolts.
Whereas like, a lot of those Broncos are just like a modern engine swapped in, modern suspension, but it's not like the fit and finish isn't really there.
Why do they even need
the icon cars? The icon cars are worth money. And they do have more of that fit and finish.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, when we say Restomod, let's make it clear as possible. Again, this is not. I've seen the original definition of Restomod, which would be a Camaro from the '60s with, let's say, maybe it has an all swap. Usually they don't nowadays. But they've got modern 18-inch wheels on them with bigger, more modern disc, usually cross-drill disc brakes. Sometimes a roll cage. They got the chip foose look going on. Those are crossing the block at things like Mecum, Broad Arrow, Barrett Jackson, Gooding and Company, RM, and I don't think they're bringing the money at all that the real good stuff brings.
And if you want to drive it, it's a good one. You're buying someone's $200,000 project for like 50 grand. That's
getting it for 75% off. It's not a bad thing at all.
It's money well spent. It's not bad, but it's
going to be a lot easier to live with.
That's not the thing, that we've sort of started to see here. We're seeing cars being completely reinvented, which, like I'm kind of with you, John. Like, I think at the very least, it takes a lot of the original cars and makes them too expensive for most people to get. So like at the very least, like sometimes you're taking the car and you're making it something completely new, but you're also taking the originals and pricing a lot of people out of the market completely. And as a result, I'm not sure. I think here's the thing, right? It's a positive thing. I love the idea of a 911 reimagined by Singer. That's how we're supposed to say it, not a Singer 911. That said, will I ever personally get to drive one? It's pretty unlikely. Maybe, but like it's pretty unlikely that I'll even get to have a go in one of those. So like, I'm glad it exists. But meanwhile, like I probably could have bought a 964 if they didn't exist. And now 964s are at the moon. So it's like, it sort of just robs most people of the ability to, get some of these cars if they're all going to be redone at a certain point. But I also, you kind of have to blame the regulations and the things the new, car companies are doing with new cars. It's because, like we're at a point where it's like, if the V12 goes away, the only V12s left are going to be the ones that already exist. And, the people with the money to buy them. And you're even seeing this with like, Porsche will redo a Carrera GT.
Yeah.
Whatnot, like from the factory, they'll redo the interior and stuff like that, because these cars are going for millions of dollars, and the people buying them, they don't necessarily want a 20-year-old interior. They want it to be redone and respect because the other thing is that car was only offered in like 5 or 6 colors, if that. So like, they want whatever color they want their spec, but a Carrera GT, and
they want it to be for them.
Cars are getting, a lot of these cars are getting higher and higher and higher, and with that comes the ability to make them whatever, which is awesome from an automotive art standpoint. But meanwhile, like, we've done price games in the past, and you can barely find anything for 10 grand these days.
Unless you're looking for something that I like.
That doesn't need a ton of work, right? You're like an enthusiast car that doesn't need a ton of work, like slim pickings.
Speaking of which, I was on Marketplace yesterday evening.
Yeah.
And I sent a Lincoln Mark 7 to my friend Steve Radovanovich, the guy with the Renault. And I think it was $6,000. It needed a little bit of work. It wasn't in bad shape. You can tell the interior probably could need a little reconditioning, things like that. But the body mechanics and interior otherwise were good. He was like $59.95. I was like, yeah, these things went up in value. People are wanting them now. Now, granted, is that a Carrera GT? No. But it does go to show you how much the market's changing.
But you paid $2,500 for your Mark 7. That was a clean driver condition car, and now that has
tripled in value. Honestly,
triple in value, pretty much.
You're not going to find it. The days of finding interesting 80s and 90s cars for under $3,000 are very, very much.
I still find them.
Unless. Yeah,
I
you
still figure it out somehow.
Yeah, I mean,
gotta get creative.
The devil. We got 5 minutes left before John's got to jump. I mean, John and Nick, I don't think I've told you this yet, but I am driving the Buick on Saturday.
Hell yeah. I want to have a go in it too. No, I promise I won't beat the shit out of it. You know,
you're gonna. Dude,
are you around
it's
Saturday
calm
morning,
you down, dude?
That's what I mean. I want to try it.
It's calm you down.
We'll do that. We'll do that.
I'll tell you what, Nick. What we'll do is we'll lock the radio because I saw the video, John. I know the radio works. We'll put the radio on 88.3 FM for you. That might help a little bit.
What kind of music is that?
It's jazz.
Sorry, I'm a serious XM guy at this point.
88. Well, dude, come on. This thing's got its original stereo in it.
I know, but I haven't memorized the FM stations.
Well, I memorized that one because it got drilled into my head in high school by.
It's a good station, man.
What kind of music is
it? Jazz. It's
jazz station. Nice. It's WBGO FM. Yeah, it's a jazz station. I've been listening. I don't listen to it as much anymore. The problem is, it doesn't make it down here. It's just a little too.
Not quite.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's in New York.
No, it's Newark, actually. Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah. Or actually, John, we could really mind fucking. We could probably put on for him instead.
What's that?
AM 1250. Do you know what station that is?
No.
It's one of the select few music AM stations left in the country that I know of. It's Morristown, New Jersey. It's oldies. It's just oldies.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
WMTR. I'll look it up before I get to Matt's place. I believe it's still in business. But they are very much old school, crackly. I listened to them in college occasionally when I just needed something to calm me down. But they've been around forever. I think their logo is actually like brown and tan. It's straight up old people. Because I can't throw on WFAN in a car like this.
Yeah, guys did it back then.
I don't want to listen to screaming. Because here's the thing, dude. The fan of the 80s is not the fan of today. It just isn't. It's not. I'm in a subway for WFAN.
Too fast paced now. Yeah.
No, it's not even that. It's just the lack of education. The lack of intelligent conversation on that station. And granted, for sports talk, the standards are a little low sometimes. Here, where the standard is? It's somewhere under my floor. It's bad. Those guys are buffoons.
Well, the car sounds pretty good too, man.
On that note, we do need to end. So John is going to singerize his Buick. He's going to swap a $300,000 Cosworth V8 with individual throttle bodies into it, and he's going to have Pagani redo the interior. we're gonna turn this $500 whatever or free.
You leave that
Buick into
$1
million Buick.
You leave that interior alone. I think the only thing that car deserves to get, I think I would probably want to upgrade. Maybe, the engine could probably use a little more power because the 307s aren't that powerful. But the truth of the matter is, the rest of that car is designed to do a job, and that job is to relax you.
That it does.
That is a 62 mile an hour cruiser. That's what it's for.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching. That does it for this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check out the other episodes. Check out the Instagram. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Catch you later.
I'm going to bed.